Hey everyone. Happy New Year. 2022. 2022. What do you have in store for us? Do I even want to ask? Hi everybody. Let's see. Getting ready to speak with Andrea Powell this morning about some really exciting developments. Hi, Jess. Hi, Two Coves Farm. My brother, sister-in-law. Yay. Hi, Laura. So, Happy New Year, everybody. I'm about to meet with Andrea Powell about the case of Tiffany Simpson and her sentencing. She was sentenced to 30 years in jail versus her trafficker. So she was charged, I'm not sure actually the actual charges that were brought against her, but it's this idea of jailing the victims versus the perpetrators and how we can really help. So here is, and let's see. Hi, everybody. So glad you're all here. Hi.
Hey, good to see you.
Oh, Happy New Year. It's great to see
Yes, Happy New Year. It feels like it's already been so well into the year. I feel like I've just lived a year in the
well,
last couple of
we
days.
just launched in with a major development and a bang.
Yeah,
This is
I
something
know.
that you've been working on for years.
9 years.
9 years,
So,
which is amazing.
yes.
I mean, really so much dedication. And Tiffany is, I'm sure, what was it like? And for our listeners, for our watchers here, just if you can give them a little bit of background, we can kind of start from
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. So I'm Andrea with Karana Rising, and we are a survivor-led organization serving survivors of human trafficking and sexual exploitation and sexual assault. We're a relatively new organization, but prior to Karana Rising, I ran another nonprofit that I'd started called Fair Girls. And in 2012, we were doing a lot of advocacy around online sexual exploitation and trafficking on websites like Backpage. There was a big article in USA Today, and a young lady in a small Georgia jail saw this article because they get USA Today in jail. I didn't know that, but I do now. And she wrote a letter to me and said, she told me a little bit about her story and asked me a question. She asked me, is she a victim of child sex trafficking or is she just a prostitute?
Mm.
She was 17 when she was arrested for sex trafficking, enticing a minor into a life of prostitution, and 30 other charges. I mean, it was just an astronomical number of charges. In Georgia at the time, if you were under the age of 18, you were automatically a victim of sex trafficking if you're involved in any type of commercial sex. Tiffany's trafficker was 34. He was known as a sexual predator, was supposed to be registered on the sex offender registry, but never did so. And when they were arrested, and this is something I just learned, there were very limited resources, court-appointed resources, and so he actually got the court-appointed resources to defend himself, and Tiffany had to go find her own attorney. She was charged, as I said, and then she was actually sentenced with no preparation at all, sentenced to 30 years in jail. She did not commit the crime. He had used her phone after stabbing her, beating her, slamming her face into a wall, and getting her pregnant. She was 7 months pregnant when she was arrested. He had threatened to kill the baby. He took her phone and enticed another young girl who she knew as a family friend, and then sold both the girls to four men for $30. The police then arrested him, and she thought they were there to help her, but they arrested her. They did rescue the other little girl, which I am deeply grateful for. But Tiffany's been in jail for 10 years. And in 2013, with the help of another pro bono attorney that we had worked with her to get. There was a habeas petition that was filed. A habeas petition, which I didn't know what that was until now, basically means she has to prove in court that she had ineffective counsel, so basically ineffective lawyer at the time that she was sentenced. And so that's what we were set out to do, but we were thwarted over and over again. Her first attorney, second attorney was not engaged, and I'm saying that in the most polite terms possible. And her new attorney happens to be the former U.S. State Department's ambassador at large for the Office to Monitor and Combat Trafficking in Persons. Just so happens she's from Georgia. In October of 2020, COVID was raging. Tiffany was really floundering. Just to give you some context of what it's like in jail, she's in her room 23 hours a day. At that time, she was getting 1 or 2 sandwiches a day with just bread and meat. She experiences a lot of abuse. I don't want to go into it because I worry she'd be retaliated against in the jail. But it's a really bad situation. And I reached out to the State Department, which is a little crazy. But I was like, I can't take it anymore. I think that she's going to die in there. And he was the ambassador at the time said, well, do you remember Susan Coppage is in Atlanta? And I was like, I didn't, but now I do. So I reached out to her. She's a former prosecutor. She took the case pro bono. She spent over $40,000 of pro bono hours on her case. And we had the hearing on Tuesday. And for 9 years, I've been emailing this girl, writing her letters, because we used to not be allowed to do email. We only got authorized to talk on the phone last year and be on video, but I've never actually seen her in real life. And she walked in, and at first I was upset because her body shackled with chains around her waist. She struggles with walking because her trafficker stabbed her in the knee, and she has a lot of knee problems.
You
Hit me.
Oh, sorry. You just dropped.
Sorry about that. Am I
But
back?
mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So I struggled, with seeing her like that, but then it just hit me, the smile on her face and the glow that she has despite everything she's been through. And as she testified for hours, court was from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. Her attorney, it was like, I don't know if you ever see Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, but it was like that. It was like Jimmy Stewart up there fighting for justice. And Tiffany she cried a lot, but she did beautifully. At the end, even the district attorney who was there to try to defeat the habeas, even he just sort of sat there like, by the end of it all, the bailiff was crying. The judge, who I don't believe knew a lot about trafficking, was very moved. I think she was very moved. We're not going to know the result for a few months, just how it is with court. But during one of the breaks, my colleague Fetcha and I went over to her, and you're not allowed to hug or touch or nothing in court with an inmate. But the bailiff just looked the other way and said, do it. And we got this photo that you used for the promotion. And it's now one of my most cherished anything. She is just, I'm biased, so I know that, but she has an angel glow about her.
Yeah.
And after everything she's been through, and trafficking was not the beginning of her journey into the darkness. It's just a part of that journey. The fact that she's standing there, that she's now got her high school diploma, that she is in cosmetology school, she wants to go to college, she wants to help and does help other survivors. She's a mentor while in prison. She's a blogger. She wants to help change Georgia law to support other survivors. So she's just, the fact that she's so dedicated and forward-thinking blows my mind.
And Andrea, she's 27 now?
She just turned 28.
28. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So still and the idea, 10 years in prison.
Right.
And as you mentioned, her journey had started long before. It was really the circumstances of her life made her really the perfect target. You and I kind of this in terms of, what are the particulars, right, that usually kind of go into, grooming somebody into a type of situation, right, where they're
Right.
kind of promised a better life, and made to think that they're with somebody who actually cares about them, only to,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, Tiffany's life, and this is all public knowledge, so I'm not sharing anything that she's not comfortable with. Tiffany's dad was convicted of murder when she was 6 and sent to prison. Her mother really struggled with alcohol and mental health. And as Tiffany said in a film called Lack of Love that we created to support our campaign, her mother's first child was the bottle. And Tiffany was given to her grandmother and aunt when she was 13. She felt alone and abandoned. She was struggling at school, was very bullied, and experienced a lot of other exploitation and abuse. And a friend introduced her to a 34-year-old man who, unbeknownst to Tiffany until not that long ago, actually, he should have been a registered sex offender, but had not registered. He very quickly started to sell her and gave her drugs to numb her experience, and basically got her to a state of just almost catatonic. And when she got pregnant, she wanted to keep the baby. And she tried to escape several times. And he tried to run her off the road. He stabbed her in the leg. He did all the things. Traffickers use a blend of like force, fraud, and coercion. Those are the three elements. So by force, it would be like stabbing her in the legs, pretty clear force. Coercion was he threatened to kill her grandmother and her family if she tried to leave. And he had told her that he had set another victim's house on fire and killed her. And she believed him. I actually also believe him on that one. And she didn't have like it's not like she didn't have like a school counselor trying to help her. She didn't have an after school program. She didn't have, an adult who was there to defend and protect her. There was a lot of judgment. And in this really small town, it just kills me to think that no one saw this, but there are thousands of girls and boys like Tiffany around the country who are being trafficked right now. And there are so many. In fact, half of the survivors I've worked with, some as young as 10, some in their 30s, were arrested as a result of their trafficking. And it really just goes to show how far we have to come to understand what trafficking looks like. Because as Tiffany has said, society wanted to throw me in a cement box so they didn't have to look at their mistakes.
Mm.
And she fought back. She's not just against her traffickers, she's fighting back against all the stereotypes, against all the injustices that she's faced. And she has such a beautiful spirit about her. After I got an email from her last night, and she was like, I saw this phone that you all had called the iPhone.
Oh, wow.
She's like, is it called the iPhone because everything you do with it is all about you?
Oh my goodness.
And she was like, it's really fun though, it has a camera. And I was like, oh my goodness, when you get out, we've got a lot to do. And
Right. I mean, gosh, there's so much, right? It's mind blowing. To think, right? I want to go back to the fact that she was 17 years old when she was locked up, and I have a 19-year-old daughter at home, right? And so when you were talking about all of the ways, right, that she was forced, fraud, coercion, right? All of those things. I mean, it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I myself started to be able to, really kind of understand those concepts and recognize what they were and put boundaries in place. And when you've been brought up in an environment that has repeatedly kind of like violated your boundaries even before this happened, right? Just when you've been brought up in a just in an environment of like red flags or toxicity, you don't know. And like I said, most of us don't know even until we're in adulthood. And the fact that, again, it's that Tiffany is really the face of this injustice, this grievous injustice that happens to so many children. And as you mentioned,
so
both
many.
and boys. And,
Mm-hmm.
and so what I'm hearing you say is that she has really kind of just embodied this spirit of change. And she's using her story in a way that can positively impact and make change happen.
She has, and and like I said, I hadn't met her in real life until Tuesday, and I had this really, I always knew she had this presence about her, this grounded energy. And even before, when people would ask me to describe her personality, one of the words I would use is meticulous.
Mm.
She is a constant learner, and she breaks down facts so clearly. But the crazy thing, she shouldn't have to do this. And there's a friend of mine named Valerie Clorer who started a movement called Revolutionary Love.
I love her.
And she's wonderful. And Valerie has a saying that those who have suffered the most are always the ones who have to stand the tallest in the face of their injustice. And I've never seen anyone stand taller in the face of not only her injustice, but so many others. We have 3 other cases going forward this month. One of a 19-year-old girl also in Georgia, who we aren't speaking about publicly yet. She has a long journey ahead of her. And Jessica and Jordan Hampton, who are in Killeen, Texas, and they were 14 and 17 when they were arrested for allegedly killing a man who was about to sexually assault and purchase both of them. I obviously don't believe they did it, but it's a long journey for them as well. They've been in jail now a year and a half, waiting for trial. So this is before they're even convicted. They've been in jail that long. So there are many, many cases, and it was really through Tiffany that I already knew survivors were being arrested. I'd already heard of Centoya Brown. I'd worked on other campaigns, but I didn't truly understand the depth and the magnitude of this gross injustice until working with her day in and day out and listening to what her life is like in jail. The fact that she has to work in a laundry room to earn enough money to get food, that I have to send her money, and I'm happy to do it, in order for her to get to call her parents or her mother, or to write me a letter or anything really. She is constantly faced with abuse, neglect in the jail, and a sense of just constantly having to be on her toes to survive. And, so when I say that, she's been locked up for 10 years, I just don't think that, unless you understand what it feels like to constantly be degraded and to somehow keep your presence and your grounding, it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And every time I feel like life is hard for me, I now appreciate that it's not compared to what she's experiencing.
Andrea, would be, I think, so powerful for us to share with our listeners how we can be of service and how we can support you to support the children that you serve, the children and the adults that you serve.
I appreciate that. So there's a few ways. One, for Tiffany, we want to get to 50,000 petition signatures on her petition. We're at about 34,000. And that is change.org/free Tiffany Simpson. And since you're there at the petition, you can also go to change.org/free Jessica and Jordan. And you can also go to karanarising.org. That's KARANA Rising, that's RISING.org, and make a contribution to support our efforts. I'm usually a little shy about asking for funding, but I have to say, I learned that we needed a lot more funding to pay expert witnesses and other things when we got here to Georgia. And so now I know we need to have a survivor impact fund to pay for some of the resources to defend our clients, in addition to supporting my survivor team. So a contribution would go a long way toward that. And if you want to dedicate it to Tiffany, when you make the contribution, there's like a pop-up that says, do you want to dedicate it to someone? And if you put Tiffany in there, I'll know to put it for her campaign. And we're small, so I'll see it. Don't worry. But, also just if you see someone, be it a child or an adult, who looks like they might be in trouble, ask if they're okay. There's another survivor on our team, and she does a lot of training with law enforcement and others to talk about how to identify victims of trafficking. And sometimes she gets frustrated. She'll be like, look, all you have to do is ask if you're okay.
Mm.
And if you can't do that or you don't feel safe, you can also call the trafficking hotline. And it may not lead to impact right then. You may not see the results, but the trafficking hotline is 1-888-3737-888. And you can make an anonymous or not anonymous report. And, worst case scenario, nothing happens. Best case scenario, you save a life.
That's right. And Andrea, tell us more about your organization. I know you said that it's small, and you really are intimately involved in everything that happens through your organization. And I know you have Fetcha as well, and some
Yeah.
amazing other women who are helping you, and possibly men, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we are a very small team, and Fetcha, Christabel, Ashley, Liz, there's a few other amazing women, Leslie, Snezhina. We came together a couple of years ago after I transitioned from our last nonprofit, and we'd all mostly known each other for over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to change the narrative from rescue and help to survivors leading and developing the solutions and the programs that we know from lived experience will support survivors. And, Tiffany has also joined our team. She is also considered staff, although we have to pay her in books and other things for now. But we really work to create survivor justice. So we're looking at bigger picture, like how do we train defense attorneys so they don't make the same mistakes that Tiffany's first attorney made. And I'm being, again, very generous and just saying he made mistakes because I don't want to say more. But we also want to develop a national program, and we're working to develop a national program to train the defense attorneys, to partner with law schools to ensure that survivors who are incarcerated get the actual representation they need, and then working with law enforcement to not make these arrests and actually to refer survivors to services. Tiffany should have never been arrested to begin with. We don't live in a perfect world. Those arrests are going to continue to happen. So we need to have effective defense, and we have to have mentoring and healing services. So our team has developed online mentoring and workshop programs led by survivors, for survivors. And the beauty in that to me is both that the programs are awesome. I know Christabel, I can see her. She's watching right now. Christabel rocks with her savvy. But also, it's also beautiful to me that it's not just that we're supporting survivors through justice, through healing. We are also empowering survivors on our team through training and resources and jobs. And we struggle tremendously with funding. It's been a rough time. But I know that we're going to get there. And I've seen it before. I am like a moth to the startup flame. And I know that what we're doing with survivor healing and justice work will work. And Tiffany is proof. I mean, she's not out of jail yet. I think we're very close. But providing her the opportunity to get out there in the community. I mean, as she said, society tried to silence her, and they can't. And being able to be a part of her mechanism to get word out about her own story and about what's happening in jails and what's happening to survivors has been so tremendous.
Yeah. Well, it has been so tremendous. And for our listeners, if you want some more background information and really a beautiful story, like I'll never forget, Andrea, you telling me the story of having just watched My Octopus Teacher, right? And
there's an octopus here.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, I have one for Tiffany too when she gets out. So.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's episode 50. On, if you go back into the archives of the Revelation Project podcast, you'll be able to kind of hear that story. And I wondered if anybody had any questions for Andrea while she's here, because you can
happy to answer.
Yeah, put those questions in the comments, and let's see if we have any so far. Yeah, so Fetch is saying we need your help to get to 50,000 signatures. That's a really big deal. Yeah, Andrea?
Mm-hmm. So sign and share. That would be a great change.org/free Tiffany Simpson. And you can also leave a comment in the petition, and I share those with her. Not all of them. Some of them are weird, but I share the ones that I think that she will appreciate. But that matters to her. And you can also send her, if you go to freetiffany.org, you can also write a letter to Tiffany. And the reason that we don't support having people write her directly is I like to make sure that what's written to her is appropriate for her right now.
Mm-hmm.
But she does like getting mail and she does write back. She is in, like I said, she's in her room 23 hours a day.
Right.
So
So
these letters matter a lot, but
they
signing
matter.
that petition makes a big difference. It really does help. And she just like, she can't fathom 34,000. She told me, she's like, I grew up in a town of 9,000 people. I just can't figure out what 34,000 people look like.
Mm. Joselle Wiesel Farrow, I hope I'm saying that right, just says, Andrea, I'm in awe of you and Fetcha.
Oh,
Well,
thanks,
uh,
Jose. I see
oh,
you.
great. And I will also echo that sentiment because I often think, about just the just your own exposure to so many difficult and harsh realities in our world. And it's like you have a front row seat and are intimately involved in more deeply understanding. And I think that I'm sure you and I kind of talked about this a little bit on the podcast episode, but I remember one of the things that you shared with me was that it's actually opened your heart more.
It
Versus
has. I
down.
can't. So when I left my last nonprofit, it was like I just gone through a horrible, traumatic breakup with a toxic person. I was sad about the transition from my last organization, and I just felt like I need to do something else with my life. Like I can't live in this space anymore. And I was out for about 2 weeks, and I missed it too much. Went right back in, and I can't think of another way to spend my time than being with my survivor sisters. And I'm so grateful for meeting Tiffany and that she trusted me after literally every adult she's ever been close to has violated her trust. And she chose to let me in her heart. And I hope I am honoring her by doing my best to be a better person and to see and respond to other survivors. And I had someone recently tell me, your organization's never going to make it because you're supporting these girls, these boys who are in jail, and you need to do something else. They're like, how do you know they're really innocent? And it was just like, and it, like I felt like I was being really, it was somebody I cared about, and it really felt bad. And then I remembered Tiffany's smile because they said this to me yesterday, and I just remembered her smile, and I was like, you're wrong.
Mm.
I know because I have Tiffany. And I know that we're going to help and reach so many other survivors. And so there is the darkness. And I have to say, there's some things I learned in court about her background that I didn't know that are really hurting me. Um, but I also see the beauty in the survivors we work with and people like you who take a chance with us and support our journey with survivors. And even just the bailiff in court on Tuesday, he could have said, no, you're not going to get to touch her, and he let us have that hug, and he could have gotten in trouble for that. And he let us have that hug. And even the district attorney was in the room when it happened. And I thought, oh, he's going to tell us no. And he just looked the other way. And I know
Yeah.
he was on the other side, but I still know he gave us that. So there's so many good people. They show up. Good people show up in everyday experiences. It's easy to be a hero in a big moment. To be a hero in the everyday life is a different story. And I get to see heroes living in everyday life, every day, all day. So I just, I see the darkness. I just choose to look at the light.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, gonna make me cry now. You're getting a lot of support in the comments, and and I wanna point back to just the humanity here, right? Because um, all of us have skeletons in our closet, all of
Yeah,
us, and it doesn't define. It doesn't. It doesn't mean, right, that those things get to define us. It's
absolutely not.
absolutely not. And I think it's so important for all of us to recognize that um, there there is always a way to make a difference, right? And so whether, for me, this subject came up, I always kind of watch in my own body for like resonance, right? And as it relates to just the oppression and subjugation of women in any situation, and men, but right, what I'm really focused on is more about bringing the power of the feminine and revealing the power of the feminine and integrating the power of the feminine, because it's by bringing these feminine values back to the world that we start to care again, that we start to open our hearts again, that we start to access healing again. And there's so many of these values that we can nurture in ourselves. And just like you said, it's like I choose to look at the light. I can see the darkness, but I choose to look at the light. And the truth of the matter is that we have both for a reason, right?
Exactly.
Dark and light, and all of these kinds of opposing energies that create new possibilities and new opportunities every day.
Exactly. So I didn't share, maybe did in episode 50 of your podcast. The way that Tiffany learned of me was that USA Today article. Her dad actually got it. He's been in jail since she was 6. Here's his 17, now then 18-year-old daughter in jail. He'd had no contact with her. Sent it to her and said, Tiffany, reach out to this woman. Try to get in touch with them. And now I'm actually in touch with him, and I've gotten to know him. He signs every email to me. In Jesus' name, love you guys. Donald Simpson, Tiffany's dad, age 52. Every message, I'm like, I get it. You're Donald. But he said to me, he has a lot of guilt. He's like, I should have been there. I want to tell other fathers. He's now talking to other fathers in prison about trafficking. And he was feeling like, he's like, I've been a bad father. Like, I don't deserve heaven. And what I say to him, and I learned this from Brian Stevenson from Equal Justice Works, you are not the sum of your mistakes. You are a whole human being. And until the justice system sees that, we will continue to harm society. And what I've also told Mr. Simpson is, when you sent her that letter, you started on a path to save her life. And you are a good dad. And, and there were people who've said to me, like, how can you like him? He killed someone. And it's like, I don't like him. I love him. Because if I want to love Tiffany, I have to love her family, her mom and her dad. And not only has Tiffany taught me the true meaning of like true love, I've also learned what true forgiveness is, because I had to forgive her mom and her dad for all the things that went wrong and see that they can be a part of her journey to freedom. Her mom has cancer and it's not doing well. And she had stopped taking her medication. And she was ghosting my calls because she knows I'm going to tell Tiffany anything she says, because I can't not. And so I pulled a sneaky one, and I called my mom. I was like, Mom, call Tiffany's mom. She's like, no. And I was like, you're a cancer survivor. Come on. And so finally my mom was like, argh, but she did it. And now my mom and her mom talk regularly. And it's helping her get her chemo treatment, which everyone has a right to not get that treatment. I don't want to imply. But she has to stay here in Earth. She has to stay on Earth right now until Tiffany can see her. And so I am being very annoying. And every time she ghosts my calls, I just say, Mom, you got to call Mrs. Simpson, wake her up. So.
I love it. And Andrea, I know we don't know yet what is going to happen, right? Based on yesterday, but what is the process as you understand it? Or basically, yeah.
Okay, so I've been in many court settings. I've worked with hundreds, maybe thousands of survivors in court settings, but I still had this childlike vision of like, we're going to walk in and the judge is going to look at Tiffany and say, you know what? We made a big mistake. Here you go. You can have her. Bye-bye. But that's not the case. So the judge has 60 days. Well, the court has 60 days to prepare a transcript of this 8-hour hearing. Holy, that's going to be big. And then Tiffany's attorney, Susan Coppage, who is one of my personal heroes now, has 30 days to file her brief. I have a feeling Susan's not going to take 30 days. The district attorney has 30 days to respond. I don't know that he'll take 30 days, but you never know. And then the judge has however long they need to take to make a decision. I believe, and I could be wrong, that the judge had a total awakening. I saw this because she'd be taking notes, and then Tiffany would say something, and she'd go, and look up. So I think that I think we have a really good shot. Now, if it's granted, okay, first of all, if it's not granted, that means we wait till 2025 for her parole hearing. I'm going to choose to look the other way from that option. And if she's granted, it goes to county. And when she said that to me, I was like, what does that mean? But it goes back to the county where she was initially arrested. And they can go to trial, or they can do what's called the time served resentencing. Her attorney thinks that time served would be what would happen. Now, we also have to make sure that she is not placed on the sex offender registry, which she currently would be, because it's not just a registry. It means she can't be around her son. She can't live with people with children. She can't work or she can't be near a school. It ties her to her district. She has to pay for her own drug tests. It's really debilitating. So we have to, it's like a virtual jail, basically. And a lot of survivors go through that. And that just has to stop. I'm not a big fan of the sex offender registry for a variety of reasons, mainly because they put people like Tiffany in the same category as people like her trafficker. But and a lot of people also look at the sex offender registry as like this foolproof plan of like knowing who's an offender in their community, and that's a false narrative. But if Tiffany gets out without those conditions, then I'm coming to get her. She's getting on the plane. We're going to California, and Point Loma University has generously offered her a scholarship.
Oh my God.
And she has a lot of other resources sitting before her. And I believe that's what's going to happen. As we've said in her film, which you can watch at tinyurl.com/lack-of-love. When you watch her film, she talks about the fact that she's never swam in the ocean. And that is the first thing she wants to do. So that's the dream that we're holding on to. And I really think it can come true. And I really believe that we're going to see Tiffany free by the end of this year.
I believe we are too. And I believe, that all of us are going to support you in making that happen,
Well, thank you.
And as many more of us that we can bring to, this community to help, because it's so important. It's so, so important. And I just, on behalf of, everyone and everybody who's watched today, I just want to thank you for your work in the world, because it does.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate everyone dialing in. And I look forward to sharing this conversation through our social media channels. And actually, provided I get into the jail on Saturday, which is the plan, I can show Tiffany a little bit of this as well. Yeah. So, she asked me if she could write notes to everyone who signed the petition. And I said, well, that's a great idea, but there's 34,000 people. And she's like, I have an idea. That thing you've been talking about, the Instagram. We can put a note on the Instagram. And I was like, we can, Tiffany. Trust me, we're using a lot of notes.
It's incredible. It's the Instagram and the ocean and all
the whole
things.
Life. She told me she wants to be vegan when she gets out. But the first month, she's not going to be vegan because she has a list of all these things that she wants to try, including a duck hot dog. I was like, a what?
Wow.
And so she's so full of life. And I know this sounds cheesy, but I'm going to say it. When Tiffany's free, the rest of us will be more free. And she's just the beginning. There's so many more survivors. And as Tiffany says, we're coming back for them.
Yes, we are back for them.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation and making the time. It's so beautiful to see you.
It's so wonderful to see you too. We've got to just make more time to there's so much more I want to know, because I know that you have a book in you, right? And
I do, and I'm almost done. This was the last chapter, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so exciting.
It's so exciting. I know.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to just read it, learn more, promote it. This is such an incredible story. You've been on.
Thank you.
Me.
And well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for just supporting us and being here today. And Yeah, anything that you can do, which is write a letter if you want. You can go to, you're going to have to say it again, to
Change.org
change.
/ free Tiffany Simpson, and you can go to karanarising.org to make a contribution and also to learn more. So,
Right, right.
and
So,
you can find my contact information there. So feel free to send a message or send it through Instagram. But we will definitely reply if you have questions to the best of our ability. I've behaved, I think, pretty well in not saying anything negative about certain people who are in court on Tuesday. But I can say more offline. So
great. Okay, so we can sign the petition, which is very
yes,
important.
right,
Help with funding, right?
exactly. Mm-hmm.
Watch the film. So all of
Exactly.
those resources are here, and I'll be sure to put some more links and notes.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's
Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you so much. So beautiful to see you.
so beautiful to see you too. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Bye.
talk soon. Bye.